Chapter 9. The lights swerved past, a car's headlights. It led us safely out of the woods. David and I stood panting on the curb. Then David started chuckling. A few seconds later, he was laughing his head off. "What's so funny?" I demanded. David gulped air, trying to catch his breath. "Us," he gasped. "We got scared of a bunch of little kids." He's right, I realized. We heard a bunch of kids playing in the woods and ran out there screaming bloody murder. "I'm glad none of our friends saw us," I said, laughing with him. "We never live it down." "Help! Help! It's a bunch of little kids!" David pretended to scream. "Oh no! It's a first grader!" "Look out!" I joked. "He's got finger paint on his hands!" "We're too jumpy," David said. "Pete probably doesn't even exist." "Yeah," I agreed. "We let a stupid story scare us silly." But inside, I wasn't so sure. The next day, Lucas waited by my locker again. Luckily, I saw him ahead of time. I turned around and walked in the other direction. My lunch sat in my locker, guarded by Lucas. I patted my pockets as I hurried away, wondering if I had any change. 50 cents. Enough for an ice cream sandwich. I didn't mind. It was better to skip lunch than end up eating raw animals every night. "Randy, you're starting to scare me," Sarah whispered. "I have to know for sure," I murmured. We were all gathered on the bleachers in the gym, boys and girls together. Sarah and I sat with Chris and Carla. "Why else would Lucas go into the woods at night?" Sarah said. "Either he's Pete or he's up to something strange. You ought to stay away from him, Randy." "But I still don't have enough facts. Lucas might not be Pete. I need to know one way or the other before the game. It's only 3 days away now." "What are you guys whispering about?" Chris asked. "Nothing," Sarah replied. "Why won't you tell?" Chris whined. "What do you think is happening?" Carla interrupted her sister. "We never have gym with the boys." Usually, the girls had gym by themselves. The boys had their own gym teacher, Mr. Shriek. "I bet we're going to learn judo or something," Chris guessed. "Like self-defense?" I asked. "Yes!" Chris's voice rose in excitement. "Maybe we'll learn how to flip the boys over. Wouldn't that be excellent?" "If only," Carla murmured. "But I can't imagine Miss Mason teaching self-defense." Miss Mason wore an awful lot of makeup for a gym teacher. Her nails were bright red and always perfectly manicured. If you threw a ball to her, she wouldn't catch it. She'd just let it go and make you chase it. I guess she was afraid of chipping a nail. She was careful about her hair, too. She dyed it white blonde and must have used gallons of hairspray on it because it poofed around her head and never moved. She didn't like to go outside on windy days. She seemed to have other things on her mind besides teaching gym to 12-year-olds. "Okay, everyone," she called out, clapping her hands together lightly. "I think Miss Mason has a crush on Mr. Shriek," Chris whispered to me. Mr. Shriek had a weightlifter's build, a head of wavy, glossy dark hair and a mustache. He liked to walk around with his chest puffed out. Mr. Shriek whispered something to Miss Mason. Miss Mason giggled. "See?" Chris gloated. "Gross," I said. Miss Mason clapped her hands again. "I guess you're wondering why the boys and girls are having gym together this week. Well, I'll tell you. We'll be learning something new and different. If not judo, then karate," Chris wished aloud. "Please, please, please." "Something I think you'll all enjoy," Miss Mason went on. "Square dancing." We all groaned. Mr. Shriek blew his whistle. "Hey, let's quiet down now," he cried sharply. We quieted down. Miss Mason said, "I know you're all excited, but you won't learn anything if you keep talking." She paused. "Mr. Shriek and I will demonstrate the steps. Then we'll put on a tape of real country music and you can all try it yourselves. Mr. Shriek himself will be the caller." Miss Mason seemed to think this was very exciting news. No one in the 6th grade got worked up about it. "First of all, you'll need to choose partners. If you have somebody in mind, go ahead and choose him or her. If you don't have a partner, we'll match you up with somebody." No one moved, but everyone started talking. "This should be good," Carla commented. "I'll bet you anything Laura picks David," Chris said. You watch. But no one made a move to pick anyone. Miss Mason clapped her hands for the zillionth time. If you don't want to choose your own partners, Mrs. Ark and I will be happy to choose for you. I don't care who I'm with, as long as it's not Jeff Fader, Carla declared. He's so gross. Carla, Chris, and I all leaned forward to peek at Jeff Fader. He sat in the front row of bleachers, picking his nose. Yuck! Chris cried. Suddenly, from behind us, a girl's voice rang out. I choose David Slater. I turned around. It was Laura. What did I tell you? Chris crowed. David slumped down on the bleacher and turned dark red. The boys around him slapped him on the back, laughing. Miss Mason shouted, That's the spirit, Laura. Thanks for getting things started. David, you and Laura can come down to the gym floor. Anyone else? For a few seconds, no one said a word. No one wants to do this dumb square dancing thing, Carl whispered. Why doesn't Miss Mason give up? Then, from the middle of the crowd, Lucas shot up. I choose Randy Clay, he called.